Hello, you lucky people. Everybody out there, this is Graham Cofe with My Music, and this is the second My Music of today. You're being absolutely spoiled for choice on this wonderful Friday. If you're catching this up on the replay on Spotify and whatever, hope you're having a good day wherever you are. In a minute, I'm going to be speaking to the wonderful Jess Guise, but first, let's have the video, which you might by now have seen or heard a few times before, but it's for a very good cause. It's for Analog Trash. Do take a look at their website after you have perused this.
Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop.
Jess Guise, how are you?
Hello, I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. I love that picture on the wall that you've got there
thank
behind
you.
you. Where's
Yeah.
that of?
So it's a painting by a wonderful artist called Mickey Longley. It's my hometown, it's Oundle, which is
Oundle.
Oundle, Oundle. It's in Northamptonshire, and that was the old music shop.
Oh
Victoria
my word.
Hall, on the right there. Yeah, it doesn't look like that anymore. It's not a music shop now. I can't remember what it is now.
No.
It was a bridal shop, but then it closed. But yeah, music shops are obviously
I'm
fewer
going
and
to tell
further
you. I'm going to
between.
tell you that I know Oundle really well.
You do?
Yeah, I do know
Really?
Oundle really well. Yeah, well, I'm a Bedfordshire boy. born
Oh,
and
okay,
bred.
so not far.
So
yeah.
I grew up in a little village called Wootton, just outside of Bedford, and
Okay.
Oundle was somewhere that I visited several times. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a nice wee town. Yeah, my dad taught. There's a big school there that my dad taught at. So yeah, that's why I lived there from the age of 2 to the age of 18. Still very attached to the place.
those little music shops
Mm.
back in the day. I mean, you know, when there were more of those little music shops and more little record shops, they were so important, weren't they?
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's hard, you know, with the once the interweb kind of sprung into
For sure.
it, you know, it was difficult for anyone selling those sort of instruments and whatever to stop people from going online and buying them. But do you miss those days?
Yeah. My school days.
Well,
I
or
suppose.
the days of
days
going into little
into music
shops.
shops. Yeah. I mean, there are still a few kicking about, aren't they? And I always get quite excited when I see one. Though sometimes I find now that then, you know, because they're often catered for kind of school crowds and stuff, so they don't always. One of my major frustrations is you're like, yes, music shop, and then you go in and they just don't have any of the stuff that you might need because they have to stock, you know, things that generally people sell. But I loved, you know, I used to spend a lot of time on Denmark Street when I was in London, just enjoying being there. And obviously that's changed
love
a lot.
that whole area. Yeah.
It is desperately. I mean, that music shop in Oundle, one of my best friends used to work at. So we'd just sort of go and hang out and look at the stuff and the guitars, and he'd tell me about guitars, and he knew and still knows infinitely more about guitars than I do. So yeah.
Last time I was in Denmark Street, I sat in a shop that predominantly does bass guitars, and you know, tried out a Rickenbacker bass.
It's quite a dangerous place, though, isn't it, Denmark Street? Like, it's a high risk place to hang out if you're a guitar fan.
It's a place where really what you should do is leave your wallet at home.
Yeah, exactly. See it as an experience rather than a shopping expedition. Yeah.
I'll come back another time. I will with my wallet, but otherwise you could just The trouble is as well, it's in a part of London where it's not overly accessible by car or anything else like that as well. So if you did end up
carry it? Yeah, especially if you buy like an amp or a bass or whatever. I did. I bought my Telecaster there from Wonder Guitars, I think, back in the day, and then you sort of with this massive case on the tube. I mean, you know, musicians are kind of used to carrying massive cases on tubes, though, aren't we? That's pretty standard.
I always miss the days of in those little music shops. They used to have like quite a lot of second-hand stock as well, and you used to be able to go and you go, well, you know, I've got this amp at the moment, I'm just looking to upgrade, and they buy the old amp off of you, and they go, oh yeah, well, how much money you got then, you know? And they find you a second-hand amp or whatever, which is great. Did you ever get any good deals? That's what I want to know.
Oh no, I think I probably got ripped off quite a lot. I'm not very good at bargaining, so possibly the opposite. I don't know. I mean, I most of my guitars. My first guitar I got when I was a teenager, and my dad bought me that. So I don't know how much he paid for it. It's pretty basic. I've still got it because it was my first guitar, and the other two guitars that I play were my dad's guitars that he left to me when he passed away.
Oh wow!
So they are both really precious, but I didn't have to haggle for them because they were my dad's. Had done all of that, and then I did once buy this Telecaster, but I had no idea what I was. I don't know anything about electric guitars. I barely know anything about acoustic guitars. I just like playing them. Sometimes people ask me what kind I'm playing, and I forget. If I'm not very good at that sort of branding kind of.
But being
the
so
luthier world is not one I'm familiar with.
Yeah, being so precious to you, but having been your dad's, etc. I mean, does that not worry you if you ever take one on a plane or anything like that?
I mean, it can do, but then I think that it's better that they have a life. It's better that they're out there being played. I talk about it in the shows sometimes when I play. There's songs I wrote for my dad, and I'll talk about it. Which can be it's sometimes a bit cruel because it's such a tear-jerking thing to say, but it helps me feel like he's still kind of a part of it. He's still kind of with me, and I think he would prefer that. I think he'd prefer risking them getting the odd knock and them actually getting used and being played in front of people. I think he'd be really, really thrilled.
People would then assume that your music side comes from your dad, but does it? Right, but does it come from anywhere else within your family?
Within my family, not really. I mean, everyone in my family loves music. My brother and I both were sort of allowed to pick an instrument when we were little. So I played the flute and he played the clarinet. And people, and my stepmom's really musical. My mum loves music. My stepdad loves music. Like, there's no one who doesn't love it, but my dad played and he was the real enthusiast, and he taught me to play guitar, or at least he taught me a bit. I still don't really know how to play guitar, so I don't want to, which is not his fault. It's very much my own. It's that I was too lazy to really practice. But yeah, he was the one with the record collection. He was the one that took me to folk gigs when I was younger. Like, that was very much his thing. I share it with other people in my family, but yeah, it's.
I love the fact that you say you can't play guitar. I mean, I think so many of us as musicians feel the same way, which is that we haven't really mastered an instrument, especially for you. Then, in terms of picking up an instrument, was it more about being able to express songwriting than it was actually being able to be proficient on the guitar? Yeah,
I mean, I've got a pretty good right hand. Like, I'm a good finger picker. That's the one thing I'm not, I am pretty good at. I just don't know what I'm playing most of the time. Like, I can sit and work it out, but I'm like, what's a pretty chord? And someone goes, what is it? And I'm like, no, absolutely no idea. I don't even know what key I'm in half the time. I can work it out because I did my flute.
But I think that's the best way. I think that's great. I mean, that's how I've learned to play guitar, and that's how, I would just sit there for hours and go, I can make that shape now. Yeah, and then if I move it up and down, it sounds great there, and it sounds great there. Had no idea. And then when someone comes to go, well, that's A sus diminished with the seventh or whatever, and you go, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting kind of question, because for me, the fact that I didn't know what I was doing was quite freeing and allowed me to feel a kind of ownership over things, rather than like that there was a good way or right way to look at chord progressions and things like that. So, my people have commented that my chords sometimes they go in weird directions. They go the wrong way around, or weird ways round. And there's also a tuning that I completely made up that I write in all the time because I just love the sound of it. I made it up to learn a Goo Goo Dolls song when I was younger. I wanted to be able to play Name by the Goo Goo Dolls, and I couldn't. It was hard, and I think it is in a funky tuning. I don't know what tuning it is originally, but I just tweaked and made something up when I was 15, and I still use that all the time, because what it allows me to feel is like, this is mine, this is mine, and I can't do it wrong, therefore, like, this isn't a way.
Have you given this tuning away to people so that they can learn to play it as well?
Yeah, for sure. It's not like a secret. I just it's just I dropped the G to the F sharp and the B to the A, but And then, you know, I don't use many shapes in it. It's just a lovely sound. Like, I love open tunings. I play quite a lot in open C as well, because they're just easier, right? Everything sounds lovely, even if you're not doing anything.
Just leave the guitar doing that.
Exactly,
And it's
fabulous. Yeah, but for me, no. To answer your question, it's always been about the writing first.
Yeah.
And I think I regularly wish I was much more proficient at my instrument, because sometimes it's annoying to be able to hear something and not know how to find it. You know, that's definitely the case. And it is frustrating for other musicians as well, when I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. It sounds like this, you know.
What key is this in?
Yeah, exactly.
I always used to say Yale.
Yale. Okay. Yeah, deadlock.
Yeah, exactly. When the rest of the band used to say, what key is this? And I'd just say Yale. It's a Yale key.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but using the nice clean kind. Yeah, but I do think, you know, I know lots of people who are extraordinarily skilled and knowledgeable about music, and they're often much more creative than I am. So part of me thinks I'm very much using it as an excuse to not do the hard work. Like, but what if it ruins my creativity, you know?
Are you though drawn then, because I know I was as a musician, are you then drawn to actually being around sometimes someone that is quite proficient, so that actually they can kind of help and sort of go, yeah, actually I can actually write this out for you, and maybe I can suggest, oh, we could have some strings over the top and it could do this. And,
I mean, arrangement wise, so like I've never written anything out. I never write any words down. I've never had to do that. So, and most of the people that I've worked with, though they're much better at their instruments than I am, they also largely play by ear. So it's never quite that. I don't think I've ever written out chord charts or anything at any point for my music.
It might happen. You never know.
It might happen. Yeah, I don't know how I'd feel about it, because it's like contained on a page. Whoa. But no, I've never done that. But there are definitely people that have. And actually, in terms of arrangement and things, I have a lot of it in my head. And especially with the older songs, I think I was quite defensive about how it should be, you know, and it needs to be this way, that, and the other. And I feel like I'm now in a phase of being much more open to suggestions that are totally different, that are a bit wacky, and taking things in a different way. Now that I'm working on new material, because with some of the old songs on my first album, I wrote a long time ago, and myself and my band have been playing them for a really long time. So they would obviously make suggestions and stuff, but then I would get like, yes, good suggestion. That is the way it goes. There is no other way. And I could get quite kind of rigid on it. So I'm trying not to be like that now.
Because perhaps of the finger picking and, you know, the sort of the way that some of your songs are structured, it would actually suit, though, maybe a quintet being behind it or whatever. So maybe at some point.
Oh no, we've got one. There's a song called Brother in Arms that the wonderful Matt Nazir, who plays keys in my husband's band, he did a string arrangement for me. I asked him to do a string arrangement, and it's heavenly. It's absolutely beautiful. And he could take full credit for that. I wouldn't know where to start. I mean, I can hear lines and sing them at people, but I wouldn't know how to do the rest. So he wrote the parts for that. So we have done it, and it is lovely. And then there's other places where we've got bits and bobs of strings. Sometimes in the olden days, I heard the line and would sit and literally just sing it at the players, and then be like,
right,
okay, yeah, that's how we go. That happened.
I was just wondering how they did it if it's never written down. Okay.
Well, I think so. I remember this is a really long time ago, but my friend Roz played some violin on some early recordings, and I sang it at her, and she was like, and then she wrote it down, and then she played it. So that did happen. But yeah, now I try to be more like, what do you think? You know, what do you want to bring, rather than dictatorial about it. I'm trying to be. So.
In terms of where your writing's going in the last couple of years, I mean, you know, something that I do want to talk to musicians about. Obviously, we've had the weirdest few years. How has that impacted your writing? How was that?
I'll be honest, it kind of didn't help for a while for me, because I felt like I wrote one song about lockdown, which came out really quickly, and I really love it. It's a song called High Enough. And I was like, I don't want to write any more songs about lockdown. That's like, I really don't want to. That's one is enough. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, bloody hell. So So I sing that one a lot and I make that joke about it. But then for a while it was like, well, there's just nothing's happening. And I didn't find it, even though there was lots of space in my day. For most of lockdown, I was doing a master's and I'm doing a doctorate. So there was other kind of brain stuff to do. And it wasn't, for me, it wasn't a particularly creative period of time. Whereas now things are more normal and I'm having more experiences and seeing people and interacting and having lovely sort of in-depth conversations with friends. That's what that sort of stuff tends to prompt me to write. So I'm very glad that phase is over for so many reasons, but especially for well, not especially, but including creative reasons. I'm really glad that it's over.
I was going to ask you about the sort of, the other side of you, the masters, etc. Because this one of the places where this is going out live at the moment is on LinkedIn, and I think I found you on LinkedIn. Is that you on LinkedIn?
I'd never use it. I possibly have an account. I can't remember.
Right.
I never use it. It's not something I ever pay any attention to. Sometimes I get notifications from them saying someone's trying to connect with you though. So I guess I must still have.
Yes, you've got an account there. So tell us a little bit about the other side of your life, other than writing.
Well, there's been a couple of us. So for 10 years I was an actor. I did that for a decade. That one definitely wasn't on LinkedIn. It's just not a feature in the theatre world.
Well, these days, yes, maybe, but not back then. No.
Yeah, well, it was only a few years ago, but it wasn't. We use Spotlight. We have it, in theatre. You just have a different set of tools.
Socials. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But then, so I retrained. I started retraining in 2019 as a counselling psychologist. So I'm now a counsellor and psychotherapist, but I'm still working on the doctorate. It's like, the whole process will have taken me, because I did a master's in psychology and I did a foundation in counselling psychology. In counselling psychotherapy, and now I'm doing a doctorate in counselling psychology and existential psychotherapy. So that's my other world, and I absolutely adore it. It's magic. It's a really, really extraordinary job. So,
what is it about that ticks all of the boxes? I used to meet with someone that does that, and because before I did this, my previous life was in sort of workplace adjustments and helping people in the workplace with all sorts of issues and needs, and also within what's called the DSA, which is the Disabled Students Allowance, in terms of helping students, and they were an assessor within the DSA as well as being a counsellor. So what was it that got you into that? Is it helping people, or is it
it sounds pretty sort of cliched, but it was to a degree. I think I love brains, I love humans, I love how we think, I'm just fascinated by how we become the people we become. And I think, from an early age, I understood through various personal experiences or within family that people working in the psychological field were hugely important in my life at times, not for me personally, but in other places. They literally save lives, and so from the age of being a teenager, I was sort of like, that's a really cool thing to do, that really matters. But then for a very long time, obviously I wanted to be an actor, and I think I just didn't feel grown up enough to be a therapist. It's like, who wants to talk to a 20-year-old who's trying to be an actress about anything? Like, what could I possibly know? So it was sort of a maturity thing. That what I love about the job, there's so much I love about the job. It's the clients, obviously, but it's the way of being with people, where you're just absolutely, it's the opposite of, it's sort of what you do. You know what I mean? It's the opposite of the music to a degree, when you're like, hello, I am holding this space by performing, by being big, by being out. In therapy, you're holding space in a totally different way. And I really find it a beautiful experience to be able to do that, to hold that space for somebody else.
Richard is calling you a human dynamo. There you go.
Oh, that's nice. I'm not sure what that means.
Richard, I know Richard's an ex BBC journalist, so used to read the news back in the day.
Hello, Richard.
Is part of the music then, as the music sits together with that, is part of the music almost a cathartic experience for you, because you're doing that work as well.
It kind of keeps the performance part of my desires ticked. Do you know what I mean? It's like, there's a part of me that loves showing off. I was an actor for 10 years. I love standing in front of people. I love making people laugh. That's really important. Not that the songs are necessarily hilarious, but I always like to get a giggle. I'm always really disappointed if I don't get a giggle out of a crowd. And I do, there's kind of an itch that it scratches on that front. But it's also the writing. That's the performance part of it. But the writing is very much like my therapy. I mean, I'm in therapy. I have to be in therapy for my training. I have to do 40 hours a year, so I know myself really well now. Like we've spent a lot of time. Sometimes
can you put
so much.
Can you put performing musician down as CPD? Is that
alas, no, I don't think it counts. But I think there's music therapy sort of things. My technical inability, the fact that I don't, my lack of technical prowess means I'd be a rubbish musical therapist. Really, like I'd be pretty rubbish at that. But it's a really significant part of how I process things, of how I writing the degree, especially with songwriting, and I'm sure you know this, is so distilled. Everything is so, you have to be so precise because you've got 2.5 minutes, or sometimes I've just recorded a song that's 5 minutes long. I like those, but it doesn't want to be longer than 7, probably.
Well, when you do your prog album, then it can be.
Exactly. Yeah. The prog album, when that comes, then I'll just go haywire with the lyrics. But that sort of precision, accuracy, and the distilled nature of songs is a really useful thing for me in terms of processing, and it just makes me feel alive singing.
Yeah, I mean, I have a fascination with communication. It's one of the reasons I do what I do. It's one of the reasons I do this as well. And for me, that's one of the reasons why perhaps I gravitate towards music as well, is because it is that a most brilliant way of communicating some of the most complex feelings and emotions to people and also in a way that enables people to feel that stuff as well. Whereas if we write it, etc., it maybe explains it, but it doesn't necessarily always make
connect
people
in that way.
Connect in that way. Yeah.
It's all sort of reflection in a way as well. I think that which is a huge part of therapy, both internally reflecting and reflecting things back. How you're perceiving the person that you're with. That's a big part of it. And I think with music, that's what you're doing. You're going like, I'm reflecting out to the world what the world is showing you sometimes, depending on the song. So that kind of holding a mirror up to stuff is another feature of it, can be, depending on what you're writing about.
Do any of the people that you meet along the way, I mean, obviously you can't write a song about people that you're treating or working with.
Don't do that.
but does any of the experience of that seep over into what you're doing?
I'm sure it does. But obviously there is a part of my mind that's quite clear cut about the two things, but for confidentiality reasons, right? Because you don't want to accidentally realize that you're
giving a game away.
That's just ethically absolutely not viable. So
I guess it's more a case of
a lot of my clients.
Yeah, I was going to say it was more a case of having been through an experience by talking to somebody or whatever, and what you've then learned from it. It's more a case of expressing your feeling
totally
from that.
And sometimes the sort of the philosophy and the literature and the stuff that I read for the CPD and for the doctorate, that will feed in. A lot of that will, because it's all about the purpose of life. Why are we here? It's all existential stuff, so that definitely feeds into the music in places.
In terms of your actual, you mentioned your dad and he taught you to play guitar, but in terms of your actual listening to music, and you being a listener and a consumer of music, who over the years has perhaps ticked boxes for you in terms of opening you up that's then filtered through to your writing?
It impacted the writing. So the first person to mention for me, who is always the first person I bring up, the reason I started writing in the first place, is an American singer-songwriter called Dar Williams, who you may know. Everybody does. I think everybody should. She's amazing. And what I love about Dar, she's an amazing player. She's an amazing singer, but she has this just wit. She's really witty and also really poignant. And she kind of takes things in quite rogue directions sometimes. And I always found that wit, the fact that she didn't feel like not everything was po-faced. You know, there's a sense of humor in even the saddest of songs. And that's something that gave me permission to write, because that's how the songs come out for me. Most of them have got some sort of snide comment or mini joke, you know, not all of them, but quite a lot of my songs have that kind of, I like to think, that kind of wryness to them in places. And Dar Williams is sort of where I learned that was okay, you know, that doesn't all have to be super earnest all the time. And she just writes beautiful melody. So she was really, really, really important in terms of me writing anything ever. You know, she was absolutely my gatekeeper, and remains a huge influence. There are so many people, it's sort of hard to know where to go. The obvious other one from youth was Stevie Nicks, because I mean there's only one Stevie Nicks, and I just loved her and sort of wanted to be her. I didn't know about the coke problem at the time, but I wanted to be everything that she was.
Did you like the narrative of her element to her song?
I like the rawness of her songwriting. That was what I liked about Stevie, was how absolutely vulnerable she is in what she writes, you know. And also her vocal delivery, which, you know, I obviously cannot emulate. My voice is a totally different kind of thing, but you just felt like you were being, you know, it feels like her feelings are kind of coming out and punching you in the face with Stevie Nicks. It's all there, even if in places the lyrics, it's not clear quite what it is that she's saying. You always know what she's feeling.
Such a distinctive vocal as well.
So distinctive, so distinctive.
You know, I'm really pleased, like, to see that there's like now the next generation of artists who are like getting her back to do bits and pieces on tracks, just because you know. I mean, she even appears on the last Gorillaz album. I don't know whether you've heard that, but it's fantastic.
I didn't know that. No,
it's fantastic. You know, it's one of those where you'd go, oh, would Damon Albarn's voice go with Stevie Nicks? Yeah, but it does. I think she's got that kind of voice that just brings out an emotion in the song, which is so powerful. Is there anyone out there at the moment that's like kind of new to the floor that's kind of ticking boxes?
Yeah, I mean, the person I was going to mention, she's not new. She's been going for a long time, but the great sort of shining light in my musical world at the moment is Anais Mitchell. Who I don't know if you're familiar with, but speaking of distinctive vocals, she has a very distinctive, utterly haunting voice, and her just the way she writes, the way she plays, the arrangement, the musicians she plays with, there's just no element that I don't love. We saw her live. I went with my husband to see her live in London a few months ago, and I got to say hello afterwards, and I was just embarrassing. Normally I'm quite good with meeting people, because I meet lots of, you meet lots of people. Normally I'm like, oh, hey, lovely to meet you. And with her, I was like, I just need to tell you how much I love you, and all this. It was awful. It was very embarrassing.
Well, we'll tag her in. We'll tag her in on this, and we'll suggest that you play together at some point. So
what a dream. She's a lovely woman.
Wistful.
She was really polite, but I think I told her, because there's the first album of hers that I heard was a record called The Brightness, and I was on my way. It was when I was trying to be an actor in one of the, because I had good years and bad years as an actor, and that's people generally do. It was a bad year. I think it wasn't going very well, and I was on my way to do a job that I hated, but I just needed the money, and I started listening to this record, and I kind of just didn't go to work. I just sat on a bench and listened to the whole thing instead, because I was like, I have to. This is too important. I can't do that.
Oh, do you know what? Sometimes they end up being some of the best albums. which is where, you know, you're in a situation. It might not even be that you're in a dark place mentally or anything, but you're just in a difficult place of your life, and
just a bad, boring day. Yeah.
And what a great title to come in at that point. The brightness. It kind of almost feels like you're gonna,
Yeah,
you know,
that's a very good point. Yeah,
come out the other side of it.
Record. And again, very sort of authentic. It feels very personal and very unique. She doesn't sound like anyone else, I don't think, Anais. So yeah, she's a big influence. If I could ever write anything like her, that would be amazing. But she's a real poet, like a real poet.
Is there anything that you feel that you haven't achieved in your writing yet that you would like to? Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Loads of things. I always think, I mean, I've just finished one recording with a wonderful man called Lucas Drinkwater, who's a multi-instrumentalist writer and just brilliant producer. And we just had a few days recording. And there's a song in there. So one of the things that I've always been trying to do is write a good song for my dad, write a song that he'd be proud of. And there's a song called Brother in Arms, which is sort of for my brother and my dad, that I'm really proud of. But I've just recorded one for him that I'm like, okay, cool. I think he'd be pleased about that song. I think that would be good. But then the big thing is I struggle to write about things that aren't just my feelings. You know, I largely just write about how I'm feeling. So a lot of it is my love life or my family, my relationships, you know, and that's what a lot of my stuff is. And a big part of me has been pushing to try and write about just anything else. Do you know what I mean? Just branch out a little bit, write a story song. But I try, but they're so often just rubbish. So then actually I've just written a song about my attempt to write a song that's not about my love life, right?
Good idea.
That's worked quite well. I think it's quite good fun, that song. I think it's quite, and again, it's quite funny. But that's still something I'd like to be able to do. I'd like to write a proper folky story song, you know, like Anais can. It's a song like Shepherd, which you may or may not know hers, which is just perfect. You know, to write a song that sounds like an ancient folk song like that. I'd love to be able to do that, but I've never yet achieved it.
I think maybe you need to go on a sort of retreat camp with someone like Seth Lakeman or someone like that. You know?
Well, I'm going on tour with Seth Lakeman, actually.
Well, there you go.
In November.
May have just mentioned that for a reason.
Yeah. Well, Seth's another huge. I mean, I wouldn't say I can't write. As I said, don't write anything like him. So it's not so much an influence. I just adore his music. I just love it, and I have done for a really long time. And I'm astonished that to be able to go on tour with him, it's bananas to me. But that's what.
Do you think you'll be asking him tips about sort of how to? I mean, where he gets his songs from? Because he does quite a lot of research and stuff, doesn't he? I think
he does. Yeah, I think he recently has been sort of going down the mines to record the sounds in the appropriate places and things like that in Devon. Yeah, I think he's very. I mean, yes, I think I'll be absolutely grilling him. I'll probably be really annoying. In fact, I'm going to have to be careful not to do it too much.
But he's a nice guy. He'll be fine.
Oh, he's a lovely man. Yeah, absolutely. But I think he's very immersed in is the impression I get. I don't know if this is the case, but I feel like he's very immersed in his local area. You know, he knows his local history, and I also love history. I did a history degree first. I'm a real history enthusiast, so I kind of feel like that's a big part of it, is immersing yourself in place and time in history. So that's something to try.
I feel a trip to Morwellham Quay or somewhere like that we have down here, that might be a good starting point, where you get to dress up as a Victorian and go down the mine and all of that sort of thing.
Brilliant. I never think, I read history books, and I know lots of people like my husband and possibly Seth, people that write, who will read things and just perpetually be like, oh, great idea for a song. Whereas I'm just like, great idea for a song, and then I'll sit down and write about my feelings again. It's just what comes out, it's just what happens. So yeah, I think it's something. It's not. I have tried. I just haven't been very pleased with the end result of any of it yet. So that's my big project for self.
I suppose the other way of doing it, I found a book of, I don't know where it is now. I'll have to go and find it. But you've just reminded me. I found in the charity shop a book of traditional folk songs. But where they've lost their melodies. How interesting is
lots
that?
of those.
Lots of those. I mean, maybe that's another way, which is to like,
Sure. And lots
take.
of people do that. That's something that the wonderful John Bowden has done. There's lots of people who've done that sort of thing. I got married at Cecil Sharp House at the English Folk
Oh
Song and Dance
wow!
Society.
Yeah.
So I sing loads of folk songs. I know loads of folk song covers, so I am relatively immersed in it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's an interesting thing.
Yeah,
God,
I think you've got to have I think you've got to have the connection to it. I think you've got to find your connectivity.
You don't want it to feel too academic, do you? That's with a song. It wants to feel like it's from somewhere.
It's got to come out of somewhere. I mean, I interviewed she was not really a folk musician if you listen to the music in the stylistic point of view, she's not a folk musician, but her music is folk music because called Six Crowd. You can check her out. Who'd been doing research over in Ukraine. She'd literally been going to babushkas and trying to get the old versions of these songs before they were changed by occupancy. And she's now reinstating them with, it's actually quite dance type music, but I love the process. The process is kind of like, I want to bring back a message which has been crushed by occupation. Especially,
wonderful thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with what's going on now. Yeah. Would you ever combine the two? I mean, I've known musicians like Aziz Ibrahim, for example, is currently, or I don't know. I mean, I need to catch up with him. But last time I spoke to him, was doing a heritage project for Lancashire Council, but involving music. Would you ever combine the sort of two elements of your life? The sort of more academic and the music?
I don't know, maybe. I mean, I kind of have loose intentions to start a folk festival in the town that I now live in, that I've talked about for some years, but while I'm still doing the doctorate, there's just no headspace, there's no alongside work and everything else, so I haven't done that. So maybe, in a community-based event like that, it would be quite fun to engage musically in that way.
Wow, what a cool idea.
Yeah, I think it would be a cool idea. I think.
Have you got the name for it? You've got to start with the name.
I haven't really got a name for it. Yeah, no. Well, it would probably just be named after the town. Do you know what I mean? But I haven't really worked it out yet. It's just it's a fun idea. But every time I mention it to anyone around here, they get quite excited. So I should probably do it at some point.
Talking about playing live, you said to me earlier that you've got some live gigs lined up. Do you want to just tell people where those are?
Yeah, absolutely. So in September, end of August, beginning of September, myself and Hannah, the wonderful Hannah Rose Platt, are going on a little mini tour, and we're going to places that are really important to us. So I'm playing in Arkells, my hometown. In the picture, we've got a show there. We've got a show in Bristol. We've got a show in London at the Green Note, which is one of my Bristol. Is that where you are?
I'm just south of Bristol. I'm in Chard. Your nearest folk festival here, of course, is Sidmouth.
Yeah. So, I trained as an actor in Bristol, so I lived there for 2 years. Yeah, I'm very.
Where in Bristol are you playing?
We are playing at a place that I have never been, called. I've totally forgotten now, so I wasn't prepared for this. What's it called?
Sorry.
That's all right. I'll just get it up. I've not actually been there. Hannah booked that one, and now I've forgotten where it is. So it's called. It's like on the tip of my tongue. It's going to be quite. To the Moon. It's called To the Moon.
To the Moon.
I was going to call it Moonies, but it's not called that. To the Moon. To the Moon in Bristol. And then, so we've got To the Moon in Bristol, the Green Note in London. We're playing Three Wise Monkeys in Colchester, which is my nearest town now. And then the Talbot in Oundle, my hometown. And then we're heading up to Liverpool.
Wow, it's quite a trek.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not. I haven't necessarily said them in the right order, but Hannah's from Liverpool, so they're all places. Hannah, she now lives in Bristol, and I trained. They're all places we have connections with.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, listen, folks, if you can spare the time, if you're in any of those places, or you can travel to any of those places, do go and see, because that would be an amazing show. Is it? Have you worked out the logistics of it? Is it like you're doing some of it together once someone openings?
I think we're going to do that. So we're going to sort of do some stuff independent, maybe, some of our stuff solo, but we are definitely also going to work some songs up together. Whether we do it set then duo set, I don't know, or if maybe it's a bit more interspersed, you know. So the actual running order we've not worked out yet, but we're definitely working up some stuff with you know, lovely lady harmonies, one of my favorite things in the world, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it should be really fun. And we, you know, Hannah, unlike me, is a brilliant story song writer. She mostly writes story songs, whereas the kind that I don't write, she writes those sort of narrative based songs. So there's quite I like that we're kind of covering those bases with these shows. You know, there's lots of story. My songs have stories, but they're all just about me. So you know, it'll be nice to have that contrast, I think.
Every song's a story. It's just where that story starts and ends that
True. Yeah,
it
good
matters.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Too. Yeah, lovely chat.
I hope some people from this will now go away, and if they haven't ever heard your music, that's the whole point of doing these. We'll investigate your music and find out a little bit more.
So.
Listen to it. That's what it's all about. You've got music available. You've got music to buy. Website. So you've got a website.
Yeah, it's Guise Music. Because the band, so I am Jess Guise, but the music comes out under the name Guise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's so simple to remember, folks. It's
Yeah.
not complicated at all. We've had some bands on there where the name's like this long, and
the only difficulty is people forget how it's spelled. I think it's spelled with a Y, but it's like disguise, but without the dis.
Absolutely. So go to the website. You know, fill your boots. Buy something different. If you've listen to it. If you like it, then buy it. You know, because it's difficult out there. It's tough. Being a musician, and everyone needs your support. Thanks so much for coming on.
Not at all. Thank you so much.
If you've enjoyed this afternoon, folks, it's been my music. Do share it around. Share it with other people. If you're listening to it on Spotify, I hope you've enjoyed the whole experience. If you haven't enjoyed this today, then this has been an instructional video on how to shred paper at a 45-degree angle. You can now do with this video whatever you like. Until next time, thanks to my guest today, Jess Guise from Guise, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.